The first step to remove your stock radio, or aftermarket radio, is to remove the dash bezel. A trim removal tool is handy to get it started, and then you can pull it out with your hands. Remove the pigtails for your headlight switch, as well as the 12-volt outlet and 4-wheel drive if equipped. The aftermarket radio I have here is only held in with two 7mm screws. Remove these screws and the head unit will come right out. A special tool is required to remove the stock head unit. A coat hanger can also work. Trim off 4 pieces, about 6 inches long, and insert them into the holes shown here. Pull them apart and out to remove the head unit. They work by pushing on this retainer clip, which allows the head unit to come out. With the head unit removed, unplug all the wires on the back. If you're lucky, the stock pigtail will still be intact, and if you're not, it's going to look like a jumbled mess. If your stock harness was cut, you can pause the video here to see the original wiring diagram. I chose this Jensen model for the replacement. It's not necessarily the fanciest radio on the market, but it does have all the features I'm looking for, and has some of the best options for its price point in my opinion. Start by stripping the wires on the stock pigtail adapter. The Jensen wires come pre-stripped, although I did end up trimming them as they were a bit long. When it comes to connecting the wires, I prefer to use these heat shrink tubes that have the solder and sealant included. As far as connecting the wires, follow the diagram that comes with your head unit. Usually, the stock adapter pigtails will have the same color as what's on the head unit, which makes for an easy install. If you choose to use the same type of heat shrink I'm using here, be careful to let it cool down before you move the wires. If you move it before the solder has a chance to reharden, it can break the heat shrink. You can use whatever method you'd like to connect the wires. Just don't use wire nuts. They're not meant for automotive use. Once you've connected all your wires, there should only be 2 left. The blue wire for the sub and the purple wire for your backup camera. Once you have the pigtail attached back to the main harness, you can solder both of these in. The next step might seem a little daunting, but I promise it's not that bad. It involves trimming this piece of plastic on the lower dash bezel. You could use a razor blade or scrub wheel, but in my opinion, an angle grinder with a flapper disc is the best bet. Although you do need to be careful and take your time, as it is easy to overdo it with this combo. Once the bottom surface is completely flush, you can test fit your head unit. If your head unit has one of these generic trim pieces, you can remove it now. It should fit nicely with a snug fit all the way across. If the fit is good, you can then reinstall your dash bezel. Don't forget to plug in any accessories. Keep in mind you may need to adjust the 2 set screws for your head unit. With the bezel installed, you can then plug in your radio, sub wires, backup camera, and main pigtail. The last thing you'll need for a proper install is this spacer kit. It comes with the left and right panels, a shim, and hardware. Pay attention when installing the sides, as they are right and left side specific. Line up the slots on the side, and then use the provided hardware to attach the panel. There are 2 kinds of screws in this kit. Make sure you use the flush mount screws. Once you have both sides installed, you can then slide in your head unit. You should feel a positive click when it snaps into place, and it should be flush with the bezel. Now that your head unit's installed, it's ready to use. The backup camera that I'm installing today comes with, of course, the camera, with power and video cables, mounting hardware, signal power wire, and the video extension cable. The first step is choosing where you want to run the video cable through the body. I chose this factory pass-through grommet. After choosing your route, you can run the video cable through. Both ends are the same, so it doesn't matter which direction you run it. However, the grommet is directional, so after you make some holes for your pass-through, make sure you pay attention to the orientation as you slide the cable through. For the routing inside the cab, I ran my cable along the kickboard here. I bundled it along with some cables that were running for my sub. Make sure it's out of the way of any pedals or moving parts underneath the dash as you route it up to your head unit. For the outside portion of the video cable, I chose to run it through the frame channel. I recommend installing grommets or wire loom anywhere the cable comes into contact with a hard surface. As you route the wire, be careful to not entangle it around fuel lines or anything that might need maintenance down the road. Use zip ties and wire loom wherever you deem necessary. With the video cable routed to the back, it's time to mount the camera. Most people choose to mount the camera around their license plate or on their bumper, but I decided to get a little fancy and drill and tap some holes for it. The only problem with that is the provided hardware didn't fit, so I had to Dremel out these slots to fit the bolts that I had. In most cases, I'd recommend sticking with the provided hardware. The next step is wiring in the power for the camera. The instructions provided in this kit are a bit confusing, so I created this visual aid. This light represents our backup light, and the battery represents, well, the battery. When your vehicle is in reverse, the backup light will get power and turn on from both its power and ground wires. The power wire that comes out of the backup camera has power and ground wires on the other end. The power end taps into the power coming out of your backup light, and the ground wire is tapped into the ground. The video cable plugs into the one coming off of the backup camera. The red wire that comes out of the video cable also plugs into reverse power. The other end of the video cable plugs into your video port on your head unit, and the attached red wire gets soldered into the harness on your head unit for the backup camera power. There's a couple options when it comes to tapping into the reverse power. You can use one of these piggyback connectors If you do, make sure you wrap it in electrical tape. For the ground wire, I tapped off of the ground that goes to this light. Here I use the second option, which I believe is the best. You can use these quick solder connections that I'm using, or conventional solder and heat shrink. Cut the wire that you're tapping into, and then insert both on one end. Basically a 2-into-1 wire setup. You could also run a ground straight off the frame. Now all that's left to do is solder in the power wire from the video cable and the camera. Here I'm doing the same kind of 2-into-1 setup for the power cable. If you have any extra cable, make sure that you wrap it up and keep it secured somewhere that's out of the way. If everything's plugged in, you should now have a working backup camera.